community discussion group, namely Upper Hutt Seniors Network. Committee members might recall we made a submission to the long-term plan highlighting our plea for council.
Oh.
So, right.
Just a technical issue, Lou.
Yes, as I was saying, in that submission, we were hoping to convey that council might collaborate with Great Power in establishing a network of responsible community organisations so that they could become more familiar with council's work programme, with the implications of that as it might impact on them, and to then offer some positive, after disseminating that information, we hope that we can be one source of responsive rather than reactive comment or commentary. This new reference group will be known as the Upper Hutt Seniors Network, and it's sponsored by Grey Power and SeniorNet. And we've had able facilitation services from the Matakiti Online Trust. It seems to us that a working relationship with council is essential to recognition of the network as a positive contributor to community development in Upper Hutt. And we hope we might enjoy an effective liaison with your projects committee. Thank you for this opportunity to speak. It's really all we can tell you about at this point, but we hope that you might get used to us occasionally joining you on a Wednesday afternoon. I am happy to answer any questions, or if there was something you wish to add, Patricia.
No, I said it all.
Right. The project has proceeded so far to acceptance and qualified acceptance by the membership of Grey Power Upper Hutt and by SeniorNet. And from here on in, we hope to be and intend to be in touch with all of those other organisations that you value, and encourage them to actually speak to us and us to them. And that's really it all we can offer you, or whatever, in explanation.
Questions, Councillor Griffiths?
Thank you. I haven't got a question at all, but I really look forward to seeing you, and thank you very much.
Good.
I encourage it.
Councillor Bentley?
Thank you both for coming today. Lou, you alluded to the fact that something on the agenda today piqued your interest, and that's why you came along. What was that item?
The item was our submission, and we wanted to convey to you the fact that the impact of the rating demands on ordinary households throughout the district is, we believe, thoroughly and probably can be proved. It's beyond sustainability. But we appreciate that all of this problem has been accelerated by a change arising from the general election. In other circumstances, you might have had more time to prepare. We realise that across the country, all councils are faced with having to bring home the cold hard message, as it currently will unfold, to their communities. We in the community, therefore, have to become responsive. We think over the years things have drifted, and they've drifted to the extent that older people have effectively not only retired, but they're withdrawn. We hope that we can encourage them to actually offer what might be described as evidence as good as an affidavit on how things are affecting them. And of course, it may be that as this thing is ultimately, and I mean even perhaps the relationships of councils with government, will ultimately revolve around people and the support of people, that council might on occasion see an opportunity to involve us in their representations as well. It's a high ambition. We're an organisation that in itself is suffering from the want of attracting capable people to be our spokespeople. We've got to regenerate interest in the community. And now I'm talking about the selfish aspect of Great Power's involvement. We don't want to see the platform that Great Power has earned with central government and with councils over many years in the past. We don't want to see the community lose that platform. We think we have a unique position in which perhaps to know that the older people's voice is heard and becomes part of your deliberations.
Councillor Swales and then Councillor Holderness
Thank you.
and then
both.
Councillor Carson.
Thank you both for coming along. Have you got the connections of all of the entities in our community? Because I know that we used to have a repository, both hard copy and online, of all of the networks. And I'm just wondering, do you have the ability to reach out to all of those networks?
That's probably my immediate job, is to form a mailing list.
Yeah.
I've already been fortunate enough to discover an organisation that meets at the Awake Church, called the Upper Valley Advocacy Group, and they have already made available their list.
Right.
I would very much like to see. In fact, what I propose to do is to leave with your secretaries a copy of what I've just said, plus the terms of reference for the organisation that we are forming. In that, I think you'll see that we feel it's absolutely essential that council is confident enough in the way we operate to volunteer representatives on that panel or discussion group or whatever we might finish up naming it.
Councillor Holderness.
Thank you. Thanks very much for coming. At our last council meeting, we heard that there's sometimes issues getting council information out to people, especially those in the older community who may not have access to social media. It would be great to hear your thoughts on how you see us being able, with the loss of the leader now, to be able to put information
Well,
out.
quickly, this might be why you find older people perhaps hard to contact. I personally hate Facebook,
Yes.
but we are going to have to use some form of media to actually let those people that are probably in their 50s and 60s that should be there behind us know that we're dealing with matters that also concern them. I mean, the things we get involved in, we're not a support group, we're an advocacy group, and therefore anything we pick up and run with, we need to regard it as generic. And I think, frankly, the community needs to do that too, because you get cases where an individual has circumstances that are so inadequate that they have all sorts of problems. They need specific help. They're not the measure of what the community needs. The community can get by on something lesser than that, provided it has the safety net there. What I'm trying to say is that we will, well, look, to use a colloquial, we want to stay aloof from what might be described as perhaps unfairly, sometimes the redneck element. But we appreciate that you've got to have rating revenue. We just believe that the method of collecting revenue to operate local government, in fact, is the responsibility of central government. Now, that's a long way away. In the meantime, we're very interested, of course, to find out what the mitigation provisions that might come through so that people can weather the next 2 to 3 years. And as you know, beyond then, the pressure is not going to come off. It's going to be intensified. You know, it could be that the rates rebate scheme will offer significant interim result, but we think in the long run that rating of property, particularly privately owned property, which is purchased out of tax-paid income, that the purchase, you know, the cost of ownerships of homes, rates is a problem. And I don't think it's fit for purpose. But look, you've caused me to tell you why we exist, where we are, and I think somewhere along the way we hope to transition to something better together rather than us.
So councillor Carson?
Thank you, Chair. Lou, have you given any initial thoughts about how you might communicate the decisions or advocacy of the network back to councillors around this table?
Yeah, I've had a lot of experience in the Horowhenua district, and there they have a senior persons network, and it's extremely well attended by mainly, by Grey Power, of course, and the other community organisations are to one way or another the recipients of grants to deliver government programs. Now, all those people come. In addition, council, who actually facilitated all and really set the agenda in Horowhenua, they are in attendance. We have the regional council in attendance because, of course, transport has often come up over the horizon in terms of theirs. We have the hospital board in attendance. And we start off with simply a round-the-table report from all the organisations present, where they basically start off in the main by telling us what they can do for people. And of course, the listeners can pass that on to members of their organisations. Occasionally, they will give notice that they are finding difficulty because of one pressure or another. And in that area, if it is generic, it often falls within the aims and objects of Grey Power, and Grey Power might quietly go away, get back in touch with that organisation, and it could become a matter of advocacy by a Grey Power visit to the executive side of Parliament. That's, I think, the ultimate benefit from it. But really, it will grow or die like topsy, depending on the enthusiasm of people to come. One thing for sure, though, we will not succeed unless council continues to value our presence and demonstrates that. We've got to stay reasonable, and I really mean try to understand and disseminate information.
Lou, if I might ask a question of clarification. So the Horowhenua group is led by council, but you're proposing that this will be led by the community with council engagement, but it will be community led, correct?
Agreed. Like all the years I was involved in this in Horowhenua, my ambition was to see council there cede to the group itself its appointment of the chair and so on. I don't think it has happened yet in Rohloff. It's, I think, for you to get value out of it, you see, I should have mentioned that our advocacy is usually generally directed to central government. Now, and that will continue, but we have to have authenticity. We have to be recognised, I believe, and I'm talking about your community as a whole, and I believe that in these community organisations which already exist, most of the organising, the local organisers are older people. They're people who, in Rohloff are actually members of Greypower. They do their stint for the community in, say, the Red Cross or the Breathe Easy group or Alzheimer's or whatever you like. And it falls to Greypower because of our platform to actually try to bring it forward with enough strength and authenticity to actually attract attention.
You mean older people, not old people? You mean older people, not old people?
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Lou and Patricia, for coming again. Much appreciated, and we will see you shortly.
Is there somewhere where I could deposit just these copies of
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
what you might be interested in as individuals? Thank you. Thank you.
Now, you're welcome to
Would you
stay.
please excuse us?
Oh, yeah,
Have a
that's
good
fine.
meeting.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, so let's move on to the director's report for planning and regulatory services. And as you will see, we are a few directors short in the room. But we have Emily who might be able to answer or address some of the issues if we have questions on this report. So,
Through the chair, would you like me to start off, or?
yeah, yes, please, Gunther. Yeah.
Cool. Good evening, everyone. So this is week 2 for me in my new role as the Group Manager Engagement Strategy and Planning. So as part of my new role, I'll be taking over this part of the organisation. And as the chair kindly pointed out, we've got Emily Thompson in the room as well, who's our new Strategy Planning and Policy Manager, who has very kindly offered to assist as we go through this. So there's only one aspect I was going to highlight just as an update, and that's for paragraph 29, where this is the section discussing the fast track approvals bill. And just to note, the central government announcement on 6th of October that there's 149 projects that they are putting through this process. And there's one project within our area, that being the Silverstream Forest development. Other than that, I'm happy to take questions.
Any questions?
Excuse me, which agenda item are we doing?
First one.
The first one.
Planning, regulatory.
Yes, and maybe just to clarify, these reports that we have were actually written under the previous structure.
Okay.
So that's obviously confused
So
you just
can we-
slightly.
Therefore, Madam Chair, can we update it about who's been appointed to the new structure or at this stage or not? Because this is news to us.
It's in the
We've had a report on the new structure.
it's in the later the come.
Okay, right, thank you.
I have a question.
Yes, councillor Bentley.
Thank you, Chair. Through you to the new director, the group manager, I should say. The Greater Wellington Natural Resources Plan, how did our submission go down?
Emily, can I pass that to you to answer?
Certainly, through the chair. So the short answer is we didn't get a lot of the relief that we were seeking through the hearings process and the decision, and we are now looking at that in detail and trying to determine what our next steps are, whether we consider appealing or whether we consider joining other appeals, because we have some very similar points to other councils. So joining their appeals, we're just putting a paper together at the moment. And we'll be bringing that information back to you. Appeals don't close for a little while yet, so I think it's mid-November off the top of my head. So we'll be able to bring that whether or not we should appeal on the points that we haven't received from the decision.
Thank you, Emily. Your worship?
So are we working with other councils about?
Through the chair, yes, we're absolutely talking to the other councils. Similar submissions to us, and we're aware that most of them are looking, they're at about the same stage we are, and looking at whether or not they are in a position to appeal some provisions of those.
Oh, sorry.
Just on that, the Wellington Regional Industrial Land Supply Study, is that public yet?
Through the chair, no, it's not yet. It's still a work in progress.
Because it will be of interest here. Anyhow, we'll wait and then we should get together in our workshop.
Okay. Councillor Ben? No, it's okay. Councillor Alter?
Thank you through your chair. I just wanted to ask about point 51, which is on page 11, and it's around replacing the RMA. And there's actually a point, a bullet point on page 12 that says councils will not, so the new version won't allow councils to restrict land use to manage financial pressures from infrastructure. So I'm kind of wondering exactly what that means, because we know that denser housing costs less to provide infrastructure, and if we're extending out, like it says in this report, there's a few references to housing growth and enabling greenfield developments, but if those are going to extend further out and the infrastructure is already struggling in terms of water, but we're not, but this is basically saying that we won't be allowed to restrict those extensions of infrastructure for financial reasons.
So who would like to address that one? Gunther or Emily?
Emily, are you over this one?
I'm happy to. Through the chair, so that's correct. That is the government's intention in changing the Act, is that won't be a consideration council will take. Quite clear about that. They would like to enable a wider range of greenfield options than the previous government had allowed.
Okay, so if we're not allowed to restrict development based on financial reasons around infrastructure, what about the capacity of the water itself in terms of, so like how much water is available for how big a population, or so the capacity of the wastewater treatment plant, how much can that cope with?
These are all good questions, Councillor.
So through the chair, so the limitations are not entirely clear yet, because of course the legislation is still being drafted. So we don't know exactly what those details will be. But as I say, their intention is to enable a wider range of greenfield options and potentially try to make housing cheaper through regulation or easier to build. So it's unlikely that will necessarily be a constraint on development. It may be something that we can take development contributions towards, or because in your example of a wastewater treatment plant, you can build a bigger wastewater treatment plant. It might cost you a very large sum of money, but it's technically possible to build one. For that consideration, that the cost consideration you're taking out of it, and then you're just left with the technical considerations of whether or not we need to build one to enable that housing.
Thank you.
It appears anyway at this time.
Any further questions? If not, I will, oh, sorry, I wasn't looking in your direction.
Hi, that's why I spoke up here. So I've got a couple of questions on the Wellington Regional Growth Framework, and the confusion that I have is that there are so many housing action plans and housing assessments that are going around, and I know that even Upper Hutt has got 2 different numbers that we're talking about. So when we start going out to the community, in the hierarchy of things, which housing assessment or the capability are we going to refer to? And the reason why I ask that is that obviously that's going to come into the regional growth strategy said that it wasn't accepting greenfield development, but obviously Fast Track has now moved that aside. So, you know, it's really quite frustrating that at a regional level we come up with something, we have this committee, but it's obviously what's the point of having it if you make decisions and then central government come over? So with regard to the housing assessment that they've got and the one that we've got here in Upper Hutt, what are the figures and which pocket of information are we going to use for our assessment, looking at our growth going forward for the next 10, 20, 30 years?
Emily or Gunter?
Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe
Emily,
this is an Emily question.
it is.
Through the chairs, I'm afraid it is again. We still need to work through that question. So we currently use the housing and business assessment that was recently completed in 2023 as our official numbers. We use those for our LTP. But if we do have a fast track consent project built and it has substantial changes in numbers, then we will need to revise at that stage. At this stage, it's only a proposal that will be potentially enabled through that legislation. It's not an absolute sort of certainty at this stage. So I think we need to stick with what we've had assessed through that project.
Can I then just make a point that I've got that assessment that we did in 2023, but those figures, if those are the ones that we're landing on, aren't translated in all of our council papers on the website. So it would be really good if we actually align all of that, because I'm getting a number of different members in the community, particularly when we're looking at this fast track bill that's going to come back on the 18th, depending on what that report is going to say to Parliament, because people out in the community are looking at 2 different numbers and are getting a little bit confused. Why are we then pushing a greenfields development that, not that it's been approved, but it is one of the named ones, and it is causing a bit of concern out in the community with regard to that. So it would be really good. The other thing is, I know that we've got 30 working days for Plan Change 49, version 1. Has there been any interest in the public or anyone with regard to putting in a challenge with that? I know it's only early days because it was only posted on the 4th of October and it closes on the 15th of November, but have we had any interest?
Through the chair, nothing at this stage. We haven't had any inquiries or any notice of any appeals being made.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Oh, Councillor Bentley. Yep.
Oh, just on that point that Councillor Swales raised about the 2 different numbers, I think what she's alluding to is on the council page on the Silverstream Spur, it's got the historical numbers from the HBA.
Yeah.
So we just need updating. Because
Absolutely.
I guess it was a page from a point in time that just needs to be refreshed as we move on.
Okay, so I'm going to move that the committee recommends the council receives and notes the report titled Directors Report Planning and Regulatory Services. Do I have a seconder? Yep, Councillor Bentley. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against? It's carried. So let's move to the Directors Report, Strategy, Partnerships and Growth.
Just through the chair, I'll just introduce this one as well. It's a relatively short report, as you can see. I guess just by way of update in terms of the draft dangerous, affected and sanitary buildings policy, just to note that consultation does close on the 25th of this month, and to date, I understand that we've received 4 submissions on that. over to yourself for questions.
Thank you. Okay, questions? No questions. What Councillor Bentley is asking for 1 second.
Sorry on that.
I suppose while you're looking, there are just so many submissions opened at and we will not have the resources to address all of them. And what we're going to have to think about is what priorities are we going to have in terms of what of these initiatives that we need to make submissions on. Because we just definitely are not going to have the resources to do all. And that in a way, that is why that we had the presentation from Grey Power to sort of talk about, and I think we could potentially, if they're doing some submissions and we're doing some submissions, maybe this is where perhaps we can cross-collaborate in some way, potentially. Councillor Ultra.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to ask about page 20 on attachment 1, the infrastructure priorities program, and that the Commission is calling for infrastructure proposals, and I'm wondering if that can include water infrastructure proposals, particularly the wastewater treatment plant. I'm wondering if Wellington Water will be putting forward a proposal, and also Greater Wellington Regional Council, perhaps for increasing water storage. And because I had a look at the link in how it's evaluated, and it doesn't go into much detail of exactly what they're looking for, I don't think.
I think this is a Gunter
What kind of
question.
things are they looking for that councils could apply for?
I guess just through the chair, just to be free and frank, we don't 100% know at this point. It's still relative early days, as Councillor Ultra has observed through looking at the site as well. I mean, we're waiting for more detail to follow as well, and it hasn't come up in my conversations across the region at this point in time either.
Thank you, Gunter. Okay, Councillor Swales.
I was just going to say, whilst I appreciate what you've said as a chair, that we might have to prioritise some of the things that we respond to in here. If there is expertise around the councillors, why can't they help and step up?
Yep, perhaps that's one of our possible solutions, is to have some subcommittees or informal groups to look at some of these things.
We used to have a legislation committee.
Yeah. Oh, Councillor Ultra again.
Page 23, there's the local government amendment bill, and there's a note there that says on the Prime Minister's Back to Basics speech, it says, "You better believe we'll submit." I just wondered who's going to be writing this submission, and I'm asking councillors for their thoughts on this.
Yeah, Liesl will be able to address this one for us.
Through you, Chair, just to clarify that attachment is an external document from Saituara, the Society of Local Government Professional Staff. So that is their comment that they will be submitting on there.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Well,
So
we should be putting submission in agreement with what the Prime Minister said. It's our job. Back to basics.
Move
suppose
that,
it's the definition, Your Worship, of what are the basics.
I'll move the report be received.
Thank you, Councillor Patton. Seconded by Councillor Bentley. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
That's carried. And we've got the Chief Executive's report. So do we have, yes, Councillor Ben, Your Worship.
On page 28, I see here the Cirque and Hepway are closing on the 24th. The Hepway offices will close at 12 p.m. I thought staff were moving out and the Hepway club won't be in use.
Through you, Chair.
Yeah.
Good spotting, Your Worship. There is currently moves underway to bring staff back to the civic building, so that may just been an inadvertent old reference from last year. Apologies.
It's 12 p.m. midnight, is it?
No.
Be 12 noon.
Yeah, councillor Bentley.
Roundabout way of getting answer this question, but Fulton's is mentioned, so I'll ask our group manager of community services, how's it all going there? Are we getting good numbers using it?
Through you, Chair, the numbers for July, August and September were about 100 ahead of the same months the previous year. So the numbers this financial year are well up or up on previous years. So there's more of an awareness of it.
Good, thank you.
So if there's no further question, councillor Holden.
No, I was just going to move.
Okay, moved by, moved and seconded by His Worship. All those in favour? Aye. Against, carried. So let's move into public excluded.
Notice the Hawkworth.
All right, so you have handed out to you the minutes of the meeting. And I want to just clarify that we're going to propose a forthwith decision. And to have a forthwith decision, everyone in the room needs to agree to that. So if anybody is planning to abstain or disagree with it, they will need to leave the room now.
I would like to express why I'm going to leave the room. I'm not going to just leave the room here.
Certainly, yep. Go ahead.
So are
please.
we up to that item?
Yeah,
Yep. Yep.
So I'd like to speak. I find it really disappointing that you're asking for a forthwith decision on approval of distribution of community grants funding when this paper is just put in front of us, a printed copy, before this meeting starts. So I'm not prepared to vote for anything that I haven't read or had the opportunity to read, and I find it really appalling that you're asking for a forthwith decision. So if you want to pass, I'm prepared to leave the room. So if you could have it recorded, that's my expression. Well, yes, because, yeah.
I'm not leaving the room.
Just hang on, councillor Bentley.
This is a very short paper. I read it a couple of minutes before the meeting and I got the gist of it. Could we just adjourn so those who haven't read it maybe have the chance to read it? Because it shouldn't take too long to read. Would that be a good compromise?
Councillor Swales, are you willing to?
I want time to read it because I'm certainly not going to approve something that I haven't read.
5 minutes.
But then I may have some questions that might make that I don't agree. So I think it would be better that actually I leave the room.
Okay, yeah, I think that's. Yeah.
Through you, Chief, just before we adjourn, just from a process perspective, just to clarify, this committee met last Thursday. So it was a relatively short turnaround. The minutes have been made available within 3 working days. I believe they may have been online yesterday, I'm not sure. Just for clarification.
But there is another meeting on the 6th of November, which is full council, where we all are at. So I'm wondering why we didn't wait for them.
And I've explained to you.
Would you like to explain why?
Yeah, the reason being, and councillor Carey, you are the chair of this committee.
Yeah, I have to explain. It's simply put, the reason this has come so soon is arguably the committee grants were late this year as a result of the last minute change from community feedback into the LTP, where they went back in. So the time to get that out, receive submissions and applications for those, meant that the community grants panel didn't meet until last Thursday. The turnaround time, and I guess the onus on us, is to get this approved forthwith early. Means that there's time for a lot of community activities that are leading up to Christmas. We wait till 6th of November and then a payout, it just delays that by, almost a month still for some of those recipients. So that's ultimately the reason, is that accurate.
Yes.
So did we give an undertaking then to those people that applied that the decision would be made at this meeting?
No.
No, we didn't.
So they could wait until the 6th.
They could, I think, just my view is in the interest of getting these out to the community grants, and I guess I question what's unclear in the minutes or the time. I think it's in the best interest of the community groups that they receive this as soon as possible.
So I'm going to propose that we do adjourn for 5 minutes for councillor Swales to read the papers and then decide whether she will step out of the meeting or not. Councillor Carson.
I have two conflicts of interest, but I do not intend to leave the meeting. I'll express my conflict of interest. They'll be recorded in the minutes, and I think that's sufficient.
Thank you. Yeah, that's good.
I'll second it. Good job.
Okay, so I proposed 5-minute adjournment. Councillor Hammond has seconded it. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Reconvene the meeting. Thank you, everyone. Okay, so we have received the report from the Director of Strategy, Partnerships and Growth. Any updates from the Director in relation to the report? I think not, no. And do the members have any questions related to the paper? Councillor Swales?
So I've got a few. So there's Autism New Zealand Incorporated and UHAG. I would have thought that we would have supported UHAG because it's local. Why did we split the money? Why did we give to both?
The chair of that committee will address that question.
Yeah, so broadly, if you look at Autism New Zealand, they provide the support into the clinical diagnosis pathways and that sort of access, whereas UHAG does arguably like the community support, advocacy and sort of support network.
And my second, I've got three. My second question is Dress for Success Wellington. What is their involvement with?
So that is specifically for workshops out in Upper Hutt, not for Wellington-based activities. So the plan there is to deliver readiness for work, like interview prep sessions, clothing support for Upper Hutt, people looking for work.
Okay. And I thought that we put that we weren't. What are we supporting Upper Hutt Primary School when I thought we weren't giving money to primary schools as when we looked at the parameters of where the money was going?
So it's the community events. That's for the Kapaka Festival for Upper Primary Intermediate schools at the end of the year, with a number of other community groups, like there's a Indian and Chinese performing group too.
So it's only because it's being held at their venue.
It's held there. It's for stage hire, which I'm pretty sure it's the specific one. But yeah.
And the Wellington Museum Trust?
So that is for fees for access for children from Upper Hutt schools to be able to get access and the passes to the likes of cable car, the
Capital E,
the Star Dome, observatory, the Carter Observatory, those activities, so that they can get kids in there to do those.
Okay. That's all my questions.
thank you, Councillor Swales. So in that case, I move that the Community Grants Committee confirm that the minutes tabled here on the 10th of October meeting are a true and correct record, and that is actually being presented by Councillor Perry. Beg your pardon.
I move the Community Grants Committee confirm the minutes tabled in the minutes of this meeting of the 10th of October 2024 meeting are a true and correct record of the meeting.
And I'll second it. Thank you, and apologies.
What's the vote? It's a forthwith decision that you're asking for?
No, not at this point. That is just for accepting the minutes. The next part, so that has been carried. Oh, sorry. Okay. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? It's carried.
And my
Abstention.
was recorded.
Yep.
Just to raise, from Councillor Carson's point, around our conflict, our independent conflict, around the, things that we've been involved in our times. I've just registered mine with the government advisor. I don't think it affects our voting on the, receiving of any minutes, other than just registering our conflicts to governance.
Yep, excellent. Yeah. All right. Now let's move to the Policy Committee notes that under Standing Order 6.6 forthwith decisions, Council has delegated authority to a majority of its members the power to make a forthwith decision. and these decisions can be exercised during a meeting of a council committee, the mayor agrees that the matter must be acted on as a matter of urgency and the decision must be unanimous. So I'm proposing that. Do I have a second? Councillor Hammond. So all those in favour?
Aye.
Contrary? So it's been carried. So now we adopt the forthwith decision with the following recommendations from the Community Grants Committee. That we received the report, that we note that we had 69 applications totaling $442,455 received as per the summary of funding applications. That we note that 140,000 was available for distribution. And we note that the applications were considered according to the community grants funding criteria and priorities, and approves its funding distribution, which is appended as attachment 1 to the minutes of the 10th October 2024 Community Grants Committee meeting. Do I have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Carey. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Contrary? It is carried. So now the meeting will move into public auxiliary. And I'm going to move that the public, if there were any, be excluded from the following parts of the proceedings.